I was forced to give up my dream college to support my family. Now they're cutting me off. I used to believe that family meant something, that blood was thicker than water, that loyalty mattered, that when you gave everything for the people you loved, they would, at the very least, acknowledge your sacrifice. But if life had taught me anything, it was that some debts would never be repaid, and some families didn't deserve your loyalty at all. I stared at my mother, my jaw tight, my fists clenched at my sides as her words settled into my bones like a sickness. "You're an adult now," she said, her voice clipped, emotionless, as if she wasn't casually destroying what little faith I had left in them. "It's time you figured things out on your own." Figured things out on my own. Like I hadn't already been doing that for years. Like I hadn't worked myself to the bone, taken every miserable shift, given every dime I earned to keep this family from crumbling under the weight of its own dysfunction. Like I hadn't already sacrificed everything for them. I let out a slow breath, steadying myself as the betrayal curdled in my stomach. I had known, deep down, I had known, this day would come. That they would use me up, drain me dry, and when I had nothing left to give, they would toss me aside without a second thought. I just hadn't expected it to hurt this much. "This is a joke, right?" My voice was eerily calm, but inside, I was unraveling. "After everything I've done for you? After all the years I spent breaking my back to make sure this family survived? You're just... what? Done with me?" My mother scoffed, crossing her arms, her face twisted in irritation, like I was the one being unreasonable. "We're not done with you. We just don't need your help anymore." Oh, so that was it. They needed me, so I had been useful. But now, I was nothing. A bitter laugh bubbled up in my throat, but I swallowed it down. I turned to my father, who sat stiffly on the couch, arms resting on his knees, staring at the floor like he couldn't bear to meet my eyes. I knew that look. It was the same one he had given me when he asked, no, demanded, I give up my acceptance letter to my dream college. "It's just not the right time," he had told me back then, his voice thick with barely concealed guilt. "We need you here. Your siblings need you. Just a few years, that's all we're asking. We'll make it up to you." And like a fool, I had believed them. I had let the guilt sink its claws into me, let their desperate pleas suffocate my own dreams until they barely felt real anymore. I had convinced myself that I was doing the right thing, that sacrificing my future was worth it, because this was my family, and families stuck together. But now that things had stabilized, now that they were finally back on their feet, now that my younger siblings were old enough to fend for themselves, suddenly I was just another mouth to feed, another expense they no longer wanted to carry. I clenched my jaw, my nails biting into my palms. "So that's it? I gave up my future for this family, and now you're just... what? Kicking me out?" My mother rolled her eyes, as if I were some ungrateful child throwing a tantrum. "We're not kicking you out. We're just saying it's time for you to be independent. We did what we had to do when times were hard, but we can't keep carrying you forever." I laughed. A sharp, hollow sound that made my father wince and my mother's lips press into a thin line. "Carrying me?" I repeated, disbelief dripping from every syllable. "That's rich. Because from where I'm standing, it sure as hell looks like I've been the one carrying you." Her expression darkened, but I didn't give her a chance to interrupt. Who was the one working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on when Dad got laid off? Who was the one handing over every paycheck so you could pay the mortgage? Who put their entire damn life on hold to make sure this family didn't fall apart? My voice was rising, shaking with the weight of all the years I had bottled up my resentment, swallowed my anger, buried my own needs so I could put them first. And now you have the audacity to act like I'm some burden? Like I'm just some freeloader you've been carrying this whole time? I shook my head, a sharp, humorless smile tugging at my lips. "That's cute." My mother's eyes narrowed. "We didn't force you to stay." I let out a slow, shuddering breath, my hands shaking at my sides. "No," I said softly. "You didn't hold a gun to my head. You just guilted me, manipulated me, made me feel like if I didn't stay, I was some selfish monster who was abandoning my own family. And like an idiot, I fell for it." Eleanor, my youngest sister, peeked her head out from the hallway, her eyes wide with something between confusion and fear. She had no idea what was happening, had no understanding of the years of history leading up to this moment. And she never would, because unlike me, she would never be asked to sacrifice herself for this family. I exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over my face as exhaustion settled into my bones. I was so tired. Tired of giving, tired of caring, tired of pretending that if I just tried hard enough, they would love me the way I had always loved them. But love was a currency they only spent when it benefited them. And I was broke. "You know what?" I said finally, my voice quieter now, but no less sharp. "Fine. You want me gone? I'm gone." My mother's lips parted, as if she had expected me to argue, expected me to beg. But I was done begging. I turned on my heel, my body moving before my mind had even caught up. I stomped down the hallway, yanking open my bedroom door, my heart pounding as I grabbed a suitcase from my closet and started stuffing it with whatever I could reach. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. This wasn't a home anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. I heard the shuffle of feet behind me, the hesitant creak of my doorframe as my father stepped inside. "Look, we don't want this to turn into a fight," he said carefully, like I was some wild animal he was afraid of provoking. I didn't turn around. "Too late," he sighed. "Where are you even going to go?" I zipped up the suitcase and finally faced him. "Not your problem," he hesitated. "We're still your family." I held his gaze, my grip tightening on the suitcase handle. "No," I said softly. "You're not." I pushed past him, dragging the suitcase behind me, my heart slamming against my ribs as I marched through the living room, past my mother's wide-eyed stare, past Evelyn's stunned silence, past everything I had ever known. I reached the door, my fingers curling around the handle. And then I turned, my gaze sweeping over them one last time. "I hope it was worth it," I murmured. "Because when you need me again, don't call." And with that, I walked out. The cold air bit at my skin as I stepped outside, dragging my suitcase behind me. The weight of everything. The betrayal, the exhaustion, the sheer absurdity of how quickly they had discarded me, pressed down on my chest like a steel vice. My fingers tightened around the suitcase handle, my mind racing even as my body moved on autopilot. I had nowhere to go, no plan, no backup savings, because every paycheck I had ever earned had gone straight into their pockets. Rent, bills, groceries. I had covered them all, convinced that my sacrifice was temporary, that once things got better, my family would return the favor. But now that they had their stability, I was disposable, a burden they could shrug off without a second thought. I walked until the ache in my legs drowned out the buzzing in my head, until I reached the bus stop at the end of our street. It was late, the streets eerily quiet, the glow of streetlights casting long shadows over the cracked pavement. I stared at the empty road, my breath coming in slow, measured exhales. What now? The question echoed in my mind, loud and relentless. I could feel the cracks forming, the anger bubbling beneath my skin. But I refused to break. Not here. Not where they could see me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. For a brief, foolish second, I thought, maybe they changed their minds. Maybe they realized what they did and they're calling to make it right. I yanked the phone out, my heart slamming against my ribs. "Mom, we need the Wi-Fi password. You changed it before you left, didn't you?" I stared at the message, my vision blurred, red-hot rage bubbling in my throat like bile. They had just kicked me out of their lives, thrown me away like trash, and this was what they cared about? I wanted to scream, wanted to throw my phone into the street to let it shatter against the asphalt. Instead, I took a deep breath, steadying my shaking hands, and typed out my response. "Me, figure it out." Then I blocked her number. One by one, I blocked them all. My mother, my father, Evelyn, every single person who had smiled to my face while leeching off me, every family member who had whispered, "It's just for a little while," while watching me struggle, every person who had known what was happening but said nothing. I had given them everything, and now they got nothing. The bus pulled up with a tired screech, and I climbed aboard, dropping into a seat near the back. The driver barely glanced at me, the hum of the engine filling the silence as the bus rumbled forward. I didn't know where I was going, but wherever it was, It had to be better than there. I spent the first night in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, the kind of place with flickering neon lights and a stale smell that clung to the walls. The front desk clerk barely looked at me as I handed over what little cash I had, sliding a rusted key across the counter. The room was small, just a bed, a wobbly table, and a window with a broken latch. But it was mine. I had something that was mine. I sank onto the mattress, exhaustion crashing over me like a tidal wave. My limbs were heavy, my body aching from months, years of carrying a weight that was never mine to bear. I should have felt lost, afraid. But all I felt was relief. No more waking up at 4 a.m. for a shift I didn't want, just so I could hand my paycheck over to people who didn't appreciate it. No more canceling plans, missing opportunities, watching my future slip through my fingers because someone else needed me more. I was free. I should have cried. Should have let myself mourn the life I had wasted on people who never deserved it. But instead, I slept. A deep, dreamless sleep that felt more like an exorcism, purging every ounce of guilt, obligation, and misplaced love that had kept me shackled to them for so long. The next morning, reality settled in. I had no job, no money, no home, but I had something else. Rage. Not the frantic, useless kind. The kind that burned bright and fast but fizzled out before it could do any real damage. No, this was a slow, simmering kind of anger. The kind that settled deep in your bones and refused to be ignored. The kind that didn't just make you want revenge. It made you need it. I wasn't going to sit around and let them win. They had stolen years from me, my education, my dreams, my future. Now, I was taking it all back. And it started with money. I spent the next week job hunting, pounding the pavement, scanning online listings, taking anything that would get me back on my feet. I didn't have the luxury of being picky. I worked double shifts at a diner during the day, took a security job at night, and spent my few hours of free time plotting my next move, because getting back on my feet wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel what they had done to me, and I knew exactly how to do it. I still had access to the family bank accounts. They had never bothered to remove my name. After all, I was the responsible one, the one who had handled the bills, the budgeting, the endless cycle of making sure they survived. They had assumed I would always be there to clean up their messes. They had assumed wrong. The first transfer was small, just a couple $100. Nothing they would notice right away. The second was bigger. The third, enough to drain their emergency fund completely. I wasn't stealing from them. I was taking back what was mine. Every dime they had sucked out of me over the years, I was reclaiming it, bit by bit, until they felt the same suffocating helplessness I had lived with for so long. And it didn't stop there. I reached out to every creditor they owed, every overdue bill they had conveniently forgotten to mention to me. I sent copies of my pay stubs, showing proof that I had been the one making payments on their behalf, that they had been living off my hard work. Within days, their accounts were flagged, payment plans were canceled, notices started piling up. And the best part? They had no idea it was me. I was a ghost in their system, my name still attached to their financials but my presence invisible. They thought their money was safe. They thought they had won. They thought I was gone for good. But I wasn't done yet. 2 weeks later, my mother called me from a new number. I let it ring. She called again and again. Desperation leaking into every missed call, every voicemail. Finally, I picked up. Hello? My voice was casual, like I hadn't been expecting her at all. There was a beat of silence, then. You did this, she hissed, her voice shaking with barely contained fury. You think we don't know? The bank froze our accounts. The bills are past due. We're drowning. And we know it was you. I smiled, stretching out on the motel bed, twirling the phone cord around my finger. Sounds rough, I said. Maybe you should figure it out on your own. You are adults, after all. A strangled noise left her throat, something between a growl and a sob. You little... I hung up. Then I blocked the number. I stared at my phone, watching the blocked number try to call me again, and again, and again. It was almost comical, the sheer desperation in their persistence, the way they clawed at me now that the roles had reversed. Just weeks ago, they had shoved me out of their lives without a second thought, convinced I would fade into irrelevance, disappear into some pit of struggle and regret. They had assumed I would crumble without them, that I would come crawling back, begging for scraps of the life I had built for them. But instead, I was thriving. I tossed my phone onto the bed, letting it buzz pathetically against the sheets while I sipped my coffee. It was the first decent cup I had in years, not some cheap instant garbage I had to ration, because my paycheck belonged to everyone but me. I sat by the window of my new apartment, the morning light spilling in through the blinds, warmth settling over my skin. That's right, my apartment. It wasn't much, just a studio with peeling paint and a view of the alley behind the building. But it was mine. No screaming siblings banging on my door, no guilt-laced reminders that I should be doing more. No suffocating presence of a family that only valued me when I was useful. Just silence. Just freedom. My phone finally stopped vibrating, and a second later, the voicemail notification popped up. I didn't bother listening to it. I could already imagine what it said, some mixture of rage, desperation, and thinly veiled guilt-tripping. I had heard it all before, but now their words were powerless. I stretched, rolling the tension from my shoulders before sliding my laptop onto my lap. I had work to do. My security job covered the rent and the diner shifts took care of the rest, but I needed more. Not just to survive. No, I was done with just surviving. I wanted to win. I wanted to take back every stolen opportunity, every year they had stripped from me. I logged into my college portal, the same one I hadn't been able to touch since they convinced me to give up my dream. The acceptance letter was still there, mocking me with its date, a relic of the life I had almost had. But it wasn't too late. I pulled up the application for re-enrollment. This time, no one could stop me. By the time I finished filling out the application, my phone had racked up 6 more missed calls. All from her. I smirked, shaking my head. It must be really bad for my mother to degrade herself like this. Curious, I unlocked my phone and scrolled through the text messages. Mom, we need to talk. Mom, pick up the phone. Mom, please, it's urgent. Then, a longer one. Mom, your father lost his job. The bank took the car. The mortgage is behind. We don't know what to do. We just need a little help. Oh, this was delicious. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words sink in, the sheer poetic justice of it filling my chest like a slow, burning flame. When I needed help? When I was struggling? When I was breaking myself to keep them afloat? I had been met with cold dismissal, a condescending pat on the back and the bitter reassurance that I was an adult now and needed to figure things out alone. And now, here they were, crumbling, begging, needing me. I took my time crafting a response, letting every ounce of my satisfaction bleed into my words. Me. That's rough. Hope you figure it out. Then I put my phone on silent. I wasn't done with them yet. But I was going to make them sweat. 3 days passed before I finally answered one of their calls. It was my father this time, his voice raw with barely contained frustration. Look, he said gruffly. I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but this isn't funny. Your mother and I are in serious trouble. I swirled my drink idly, staring at the ceiling. And that's my problem, because... Silence. I could feel him gritting his teeth through the phone. Because we're family. I laughed. Actually laughed. Family? I repeated, shaking my head. That's funny. Because last I checked, family doesn't use each other and then throw them away when they're inconvenient. That's not what happened, he snapped. We were struggling. We needed you. And now that you're struggling, you suddenly remember I exist? My voice was sharp, amusement curdling into something colder. That's interesting. He inhaled sharply, like he was trying to keep himself from snapping. We made sacrifices too, you know. I rolled my eyes. Oh, really? What exactly did you sacrifice, Dad? Because from where I'm standing, the only thing you ever gave up was the burden of responsibility. On to me. Enough. His voice was tight, clipped. We don't have time for this. We need your help. If we don't come up with the mortgage, we'll lose the house. I let his words hang between us for a moment, soaking in the sheer delicious irony. Then I said, Sounds like you need to figure it out on your own. You are adults after all. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could hear my mother in the background, asking what I had said, asking if I would help. My father inhaled sharply, his breath shaky with barely contained rage. "You're really going to do this?" His voice was low, dangerous. I smiled. "I learned from the best." Then I hung up, and this time I didn't block the number. No, I wanted them to keep calling. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, powerless, hopeless, completely, utterly alone. A week later, I got another text. "Evelyn, I don't know what's going on between you and Mom and Dad, but this is getting out of hand. They're talking about selling the house. You need to fix this." I raised an eyebrow at my phone, incredulous at the sheer audacity. I needed to fix this? I chuckled under my breath, shaking my head. "Me? I think you meant to text them, not me. I'm not part of this family anymore, remember? Evelyn, don't be like this. I know they messed up, but this is our home. Are you really going to let them lose everything?" I stared at the words. Home. Funny. I had never felt like it was my home. It had always been theirs. A place I was expected to serve, to sacrifice, to exist in only as long as I was useful. Now, they wanted me to save it. I typed my response, simple and brutal. Me. Yes. And then, I put myself first. I pressed submit on my college re-enrollment form. I accepted a new job, one that paid better, one that would get me out of this town for good. And I never looked back. Because if they had taught me anything, it was how to survive on my own. And now, they would have to do the same. The final call came at midnight. I had been expecting it, waiting even. They had exhausted every other option, clung to their delusions for as long as they could, but reality was finally catching up to them. And now, they had no choice but to face the one thing they had spent years avoiding. Consequences. I let the phone ring. Once, twice, a third time. Then, just as it was about to go to voicemail, I picked up. Silence greeted me on the other end, thick and heavy, like they were holding their breath. Then, "Please," my mother's voice, small, strained, barely above a whisper. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the city lights outside my apartment window. The world felt big now, so much bigger than the suffocating little house I had spent my entire life trapped inside. "Please what?" I asked, keeping my tone light, almost lazy. A shaky breath. "We're losing everything." I didn't say anything. "The bank is taking the house," she continued, her voice fraying at the edges. "Your father's credit is destroyed. We can't get approved for a loan. The car's already gone. Her breath hitched. "We don't have anywhere to go." She let that last part hang in the air, waiting, hoping. I closed my eyes briefly, exhaling slowly. How ironic. For years, I had been their safety net, the one they turned to when things went wrong, when the weight of responsibility became too much to bear. I had given up everything, my education, my dreams, my future, to keep them from sinking. And in return, they had tossed me aside the moment they no longer needed me. Now, they were the ones drowning, and I was the only one who could pull them out. But I wouldn't. Not this time. I had spent my entire life sacrificing, waiting, hoping for them to see me as more than just a resource to exploit. But I wasn't their safety net anymore. I wasn't their crutch. I wasn't their solution. I was done. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said finally, my voice even. "I hope you figure something out." A sharp inhale, a desperate pause. "You don't understand," she rushed out. "We have nothing. We'll be homeless. Your father is—" She cut herself off, then tried again. "We just need help getting back on our feet. Just a little. If you could lend us something—" I let out a quiet chuckle. "Lend?" I repeated. "Lend?" I could hear the shift in her breathing. She knew what was coming. "Remind me again, Mom," I said smoothly. "What did you tell me when I was the one who needed help?" Silence. "Because I remember it perfectly," I continued. "You said I was an adult now, that it was time I figured things out on my own." A small, choked sound left her throat. I did figure it out," I cut in. "I found a place to live. I got a better job. I went back to school, and I did it all without you." I let that sink in. "But now it's you who needs help," I mused. "And suddenly you do believe in family." "That's not fair," she whispered. I laughed, a short, sharp sound. Oh, now you care about fairness? There was a pause. Then her voice hardened. You can't just turn your back on us. I tilted my head, intrigued by the sudden shift in tone. There it was, the thing that had always been buried beneath her words, beneath every guilt trip, every plea for help. Entitlement. She still thought she had control over me. I exhaled, shaking my head. You turned your back on me first. You just didn't think you'd ever have to pay for it. You don't mean that, she insisted, her voice trembling. You're angry. I get that. But we're still family. No, I said quietly. We're not. I heard her breath hitch again, but I didn't let her respond. Good luck, Mom. Then I hung up. And this time, I didn't just block the number. I deleted it. The eviction notice came 2 weeks later. I didn't have to check to know that my parents had exhausted every last option. The house that I had spent years working to keep afloat, the one they had convinced me to sacrifice my entire future for, was no longer theirs. Their safety net had been cut. And I had walked away without looking back. I had expected to feel something, regret, guilt, anything, but all I felt was relief. They had taken so much from me. Now they had nothing left to take. I was free. 6 months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop near my new apartment, scrolling through my class syllabus. The words, first semester, still felt unreal, like something out of a life that had never belonged to me. But it did belong to me now. I had taken it back. I had won. As I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed on the table. Not a call, just a notification from my university portal. Scholarship funds dispersed. I exhaled slowly, a small smile tugging at my lips. I had made it. I had rebuilt myself from nothing.